Let me share the screen so that we all see what we have to see, which is the book. So there were 3 exercises actually, so quite a lot of work. And let's see what you have come up with. So okay, the first one was from page 158. This had to do with the binding principles, if you recall. So your task was to look at sentences which were actually ungrammatical, and for each sentence to explain what the binding domain of this NP that causes the problem is, and which binding condition is being violated. Okay, so who would like to discuss A and B? Michael loves him. This is bad, and he loves Michael is also bad. What's the reason? Okay, please raise your hand if you are Jiajun.
Yes, the first one, Michael loves him. I think the binding domain of the NP causing the problem is the sentence itself. Because in this sentence, the pronoun him is co-commanded by Michael, his mother, and the pronoun he in this sentence is bounded in this binding domain that contains them. Thus, it violates principle B that in the binding theory, that says that pronoun must be free in its binding domain.
Yes, this is perfect. I have nothing to add. What about B?
Okay, about the B, I think I have to say it from 2 perspectives. The first is that the binding domain of the NP causing the problem is the sentence itself, he loves Michael. And in this sentence, although the pronoun he and its antecedent Michael are co-index, they do not form a binding relation since the antecedent doesn't co-command the pronoun, because the bounder must do the co-commanding of the binding, not the reverse. So this first violates this principle. And on the other hand, even we presuppose that the R expression is co-commanded by its bounder he. They are co-commanded and co-index, but the I expression then is bounded to the bounder he in its bounding domain. Thus, it violates principle C in the bounding theory that an I expression must be free.
Yes, thank you. That's right. So the second part is the important one, actually. So as you said, Michael here is an R expression, and principle C says that R expressions cannot be bound within their domain, which happens here. Yeah. So sentence B cannot mean Michael loves Michael for this reason. Okay, very good. What about C and D? Hannah, please.
Yes, so for B, I said that the clause which has the problem is loves himself, and it's not C-commanded by its binder, so it's not bound. And therefore it's ungrammatical because it violates principle A, which says that anaphors must be bound in the first place.
That's right, perfect. So himself is not C-commanded by Michael, so it is not bound, and this is a violation of condition A. Okay, what about D?
As for D, it's loves him is the binding domain causing the problem, and it's neither C-commended nor co-indexed with its binder. So it's not bound, and therefore it violates principle B that pronouns must be bound.
Let's so this is D. Okay. And which principle would be this then?
A.
Okay. Does everybody agree, or maybe Ulrich has something to add?
Yes, my solution is different. I'm saying that the violation is here is that pronouns like him in this case cannot be bound within their clause.
Yes, I actually tend to agree with Ulrika this time. So the crucial thing, right, is that father and him are co-indexed, and father is in the position to actually bind him. Okay, so I think father C commands him, and they are co-indexed. So this is supposed to mean Michael's father, loves Michael's father, and the correct version would be Michael's father loves himself, right? Because an anaphor must be bound, but indeed, as Ulrika says, a pronoun like him cannot be bound within its domain, right? And this is condition B. So this is a trick. Yeah. So if you compare C and D, right, the difference is that in C, Michael doesn't C command himself because it's buried deeply within the subject phrase. In D, however, father does C command him because it's higher up in the structure, so to speak. Okay. All right, thank you to everyone, and let's look at E and F. I would like to Dao, please.
Yes. So E, the sentence E, the noun phrase that's called the problem is anaphor herself, and the noun phrase who Susan and the anaphor herself are not in the same bodying domain. The anaphor herself is in the bodying domain. John should marry herself. And the anaphor herself is C commanded by its binder, which is the noun phrase Susan. So this violates binding principle A revised. An anaphor must be bound in its binding domain, and the binding condition is violated is that the anaphor herself is not bound in its binding domain. That's why this sentence is ungrammatical.
That's right. I fully agree. So this is a complex sentence. There is a main clause and a subordinate clause, and this means that there are two binding domains, and indeed this means that Susan doesn't bind herself.
Yeah.
Great. What about F?
Yes. In sentence F, the noun phrase causing the problem is a pronoun her. The noun phrase Susan and the pronoun her are in the same binding domain. Susan should kiss her, and the pronoun her is commanded by its binder, what is the noun phrase Susan. So this violates binding principle B. A pronoun must be free in its binding domain, and the binding condition is that violated is the pronoun her is not free in his binding domain. That's why sentence F is ungrammatical.
That's right. So essentially, this is the same story as in D, the same violation. Very good. Thank you very much. Let's move on to the next exercise, which had to do with X-bar theory. Okay, this was on page 200 and GPS 1. Okay, so your job was to check the clauses in the phrases in the brackets and decide whether they are complements or adjuncts, and you had to do this with using a couple of the tests we discussed in class and in the book. So who would like to take A and B? Daddy, please.
Okay, a container of flour is a complement, and then for B, a container with a glass lid, it's a complement as well.
Okay, I agree with the first one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure about the second one, but let's try a couple of tests. So how could you show that A is a complement?
Usually a complement comes before the head, and it's indicated by off. So usually it is a complement.
It's true that off PPs are usually complements in English, but there are some tests that you can actually use to show that this is a complement. For example, who can help us? What tests can we use to show that off flour is a complement here? Any guesses? Ulrike?
I used two methods to try this out, namely one, conjunction of likes. So what I did was a container of flour and of sugar, and this does not work. And then I also used one replacement, the one of flour, which does not work too. And this shows us that the PP of flour is a complement. Oh, well, that's what I think.
That's right. I agree. So you cannot say something like, give me the container of salt and the one of flour. That just doesn't work. And also the coordination. Okay, very good. You can also try, actually, if you add an adjunct. So you can say a container of flour, the container of flour in the cupboard, that's fine. But you cannot say the container in the cupboard of flour. This also indicates that of flour is actually a complement, because complements always need to be adjacent to the head. So nothing can come between container and of flour. That's right. So we are pretty sure that of flour is a complement. Now, what about a container? Daddy said this is also a complement, but I actually think it's an adjunct. Can someone show us why video glass lid is an adjunct?
I think.
Please proceed.
Professor, if we draw the tree, I think it's easier to judge this one is the adjunct or complement.
Would you like to show a tree?
Yes.
I will give you the right to do so. Okay. So now you can, and I should stop share screening for a while, right? I guess, so that you can do so. So now I stop the share my screen, and Linda, you are supposed to be able to share your screen now.
Yes.
Yes, here you go.
So I draw like this. A is the determiner, and C the two noun phrase, and the container is another noun, and our flower is the prepositional phrase. Yes.
That's right.
Yeah, I think this one is it complement.
Yes. And what about the second one, B?
Yeah, B here is like this tree, and A is the determiner from the noun phrase, and two nouns, and we have another nouns is the container, and with a glass of lid is the prepositional phrase.
Yeah, very good.
Yes.
So this is indeed.
It's easier to judge this one is adjunct or is a complement.
Yes, that's right. So this is the right tree. I fully agree.
Yes.
The question is how we can show this with tests, and Molukan would like to say something.
Yeah, I would say the second one, B, a container with a glass lid. The first test that I used is conjunction and it says like a container and a glass lid. In this regard, with a glass lid is a complement. And I used, a glass lid, a complement, and another test is the one with a glass lid. I used the one replacement. And in this case, it is agents.
Okay, so let's start from the end. I absolutely agree. You can say something like, give me the container with the plastic lid and also the one with a glass lid. So you can do this one replacement. And as you said, this indicates that with a glass lid is an adjunct. Okay, so this is perfect. And what was the first test? I didn't understand it perfectly.
The first test is a container and a glass lid.
Yes, you can do that, but of course,
in this gap, it makes the PP complement. But if I use with, I would tend to add like the one with the glass lids.
But be careful, because in the first test you changed it a bit, right? Because you say a container and a glass lid, so it's no longer a PP, right? Because you don't have vid there.
Yeah, I would say it is adjuncts, the one with a glass lid.
Yeah, so it is an adjunct, right? That's the right conclusion. This is an adjunct. I fully agree. Okay. Would anyone like to add? Hannah, please.
Sir, could we use the rule that says that complements are usually marked with the preposition of, and all the other ones are adjuncts, or not?
Well, I would say this is like a rule of thumb. So it is true most of the time, but it's not a real test. It's not like 100% sure. So it's better to use the other tests, such as one replacement or adjacency. Those are more reliable, I would say. But it's a bit like testing for coronavirus. Some tests have 100%, 99% accuracy, others just 80. So I would say this off PPs being complements, this is like a quick test, which works most of the time, but not always. And the other ones are more precise.
Okay, so sir, what's the answer to the first question?
Of A. First question of A. Yeah. Oh yes, it's a complement, absolutely.
Okay.
It's a complement, right? So it works this time. It's a complement. Okay, B is, yeah, so we can say one with a glass lid. That's right. Mulukan, please.
Okay, for C, I would say I used 3 tests. The first one, the collection of figure lines is complement. The collection in the window, in this case it is adjuncts, and the one in the window,
that's right,
is complement.
Well, if I understand correctly, yep.
So in my conclusion, And the first PP of figureness is complement, and the second PP in the window is agents.
Yes, that's right. Perfect. So this we started to discuss C, and I completely agree with Morgan's argument. So the first is complement, other is an adjunct. Can someone mention another test with regard to C, which is helpful? Dao?
Yes, I would like to use a test of conjunction of likes. So we conjoin the prepositional of figurines and the prepositional in the window. For example, you have the collection of figurines and in the window. So this now phrase look odd when we conjoin the two phrases here. Therefore, these two preposition here cannot conjoin with each other. Therefore, these two phrases of figuring and in the window cannot be the same types.
That's right. Very good argument. The conjunction of likes test. Okay, great.
Yeah, and another test I use is a test of adjacency, in which I put the phrase of figuring next to the head. I put the phrase in the window next to the head, the collection, and I have the phrase, the collection in the window of figuring. So when I change this position, this now phrase looks off. Therefore, the phrase of figuring is adjacent to the head and closer to the head than the phrase in the window. Therefore, the phrase of figuring is a complement, and the phrase in the window is adjunct of the now phrase, the collection. Yeah.
Very good. This is a very elegant test because just by trying to change the order, you can prove both that figurines is a complement and also that in the window is an adjunct. Very good. Ulrike?
I actually applied 3 tests for this one. Like Dao mentioned, the conjunction of likes and adjacency. And I also tried one replacement. So the one in the window works out well, but the one of figurines doesn't work.
Yes, that's right. That's also the case. Okay, very good. Let's move on to D, which is actually quite similar, I think, the statue of Napoleon on the corner. Actually, we can skip this, right? Because this is the exact same story as in C. So let's look at E rather. Every window in the building with a broken pane. Who would like to discuss this? Jie-jun?
Yes, I would think that the first PP in the building is a complement, and the second one is an adjunct. Because what I tested this is to add an adjunct between the noun phrase and the PP. If it works, then it is an adjunct. If it not works, then it is a complement. So I think in the building in this sentence it should be a complement because he provides a complementary meaning to the window.
Well, I would say I will look at the tests, okay, because this is a good point. So you said that in the building provides some complementary meaning, right?
Yeah.
And so that's an important point because a difference between syntax and semantics maybe that to test whether the PP gives a complementary meaning or not, this is not so easy. I mean, it's what is easier to test is whether you can do these syntactic tricks. So whether you can do one replacement, whether you can do reordering, etc. So in general, actually, in linguistics, it's easier to talk about syntax because either a word order is acceptable or not most of the time. Semantics is not so clear-cut most of the time. So here as well, I think actually it helps to do the tests. So what do the tests test? What did the tests show? What did you find?
Yeah, I think this semantics test is indeed provide some help when I'm not very sure, because actually, as Hannah mentioned, it is also mentioned in the book that always the of is of PP's complement. But when I come to this sentence, I think in the building is also a complement, because it means that the window is in the building, and it indeed means that the window is belong to the building. So
oh, I see. Okay, that's a very good observation. So you are right. Every window of the building and every window in the building, they are pretty similar in meaning, right?
yeah.
And yet, I think if we do the tests, it will turn out that in the building is actually an adjunct. But I mean, let's try the reordering test. So is it okay to say every window with a broken pane in the building? What do you think?
I also tried this, but I don't think it works very well for me, because it might cause some ambiguity that whether it is the window in the building or the broken pane in the building.
Okay. Well, that's right. Okay, Ulrike has something to add.
I think it works. I mean, from a purely grammatical perspective, it is fine. I do agree to Hannah, that or was it Hannah? I think so. That there may be some ambiguity. That's true. But Dejun, sorry. But this is not necessarily a thing of syntax, but rather of semantics, I suppose.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Ulrika here. So I think this word order is more natural, the one we see here, every window in a building with a broken pane. But actually the other word order is also okay, a bit more difficult to understand maybe, but I think grammatically speaking, it works, every window with a broken pane in the building. So it seems that these two can be reordered, which means that they are adjuncts, I think. Okay. What else can we do to show that these are adjuncts? Both of them, Hannah?
Yes, I just have something to add. I think that if each time we try to replace the adjunct with the preposition of, I think we would still have this confusion. We can do the same with, for example, the collection of the window. I think it would not be very appropriate to think about adjuncts or these phrases and replace in with of. I think that's what created the confusion. As for the tests, I also used the tests of conjoining them with each other. You can say every window in the building and with a broken pane.
And that's fine, right?
And it's still fine, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So the principle of reordering and the principle of conjunction also shows that this is an adjunct. And I think, yeah, Ulrika, please. I see your hand.
Sorry, I forgot to lower my hand. Sorry.
That's okay. So what I just wanted to add quickly that I think you can also use the one replacement. So you can say which windows, the ones in the building with a broken pane. I think that also works. Okay. But this is important, and it's an interesting thing that even though in this case, in this particular case, every window in the building, every window of the building means pretty much the same thing, there is a syntactic difference. In the building is an adjunct, and of the building is a complement. Okay, very good, and thank you for the nice discussion. And I will proceed to the last piece of homework, page 202. And GP has 4. So here you had to look at the phrases which were marked. I mean the NPs, the PPs, and the ADVPs, and decide whether each of them are complements or adjuncts. So this was a more complex exercise because it was a full sentence with many phrases. Who would like to discuss? Oh, Mulukan's hand is already up. So Mulukan, please discuss A.
Thank you. I could see 3 phrases. One is VP and ADP, which is never keeps, and NDP, the second one, hair pencil, and the third one, PP, in the correct drawer. So Eri never keeps her pencil in the correct drawer. So I used it when I dismantled the 3. The first one, BP and ADP never keeps, are used as a complements, and the second, hair pencils, is used as adjuncts, and the final PP is used as the final PP in the correct drawer is adjuncts. And also I used another test, did so or did to replacement. When I rearrange on this did so or did to replacement, the first one, Erin never keeps her pencils in the correct drawer. Then when I replace this in did so, it said John never did so in the correct drawer. Somebody, Mr. John, I used the name simply, randomly used the name John. And another, John never so did keep his pencil.
Okay.
Can I show my solution, by the way, or can I share my solution?
Sure, please. I give you the right now. Just a minute. Yes, now you can share.
There it is. So here, the first one, these phrases are never keeps. It is both verb. It is verb phrase, and also adverb when in the case of never, and when we join never keeps as one phrase, it is verb phrase, and hair pencil is noun phrase, and just there, and also PP is in the correct drawer. So they both. The third one is in adjuncts. When I just replace them in did so or did to replacement, just I use like this. John did so in the correct drawer. George never did keep his pencil.
Okay, let's discuss. So, okay, did so replacement. John never did so in the correct drawer. Actually, I'm not perfectly sure that this sentence B is grammatical. I don't know what the others think, but it's a bit shaky. But the conclusion is actually right. So in the correct row, this is an adjunct. I absolutely agree. Now, you also said that the NP her pencils is an adjunct. Does everybody agree? Or maybe some people have a different opinion. Let's hear if that's the case. So, Ulrika, please.
My solution is a little different here. I'd say the adverb phrase never is an adjunct, and the NP and the PP are both complements.
Okay. What would be your arguments?
My argument is for one thing. I played around a bit with do so replacements. So I had the sentence, Erin never keeps her pencils in the correct drawer. and do so replacement, which works perfectly, is but Chauvin always does so. But then if I try to change this and say, but Chauvin always does so her rulers, this does not work. And I think the another solution, like, but Chauvin always does so on the table, does not work as well. So I think that to keep something in somewhere is, so I think this the in the correct draw is a complement to keep.
Sorry, give me a minute. I have to check. I'm terribly sorry, Ulrika. Here I am. I just got a phone call which I have to take, but I'll be back in a minute.
All right.
Okay, my apologies. I'll be back in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Apologies, I'm back.
All right.
This is the thing with home office, that stuff happens at home.
Yes.
That you have to take care of. So please, Ulrike, can you repeat your analysis?
Yes, so I'm not sure myself that I did not step into the semantic gap here, so to speak. But I tried some do-so replacements, and I figured that if we take the sentence, Erin never keeps her pencils in the correct drawer, we can add something like, but Choban always does so, which works quite all right. And then if we continue with but Choban always does so, her rulers, this does not work at all. And for me, but Choban always does so on the table does not work as well. But I'm not sure it does not sound all right to me, but maybe again that this is not, maybe it is not a grammatical problem, but it's just a problem of semantics again. I can't really tell, but it's just to keep something in the drawer is not the same as to, I mean, to keep her pencils is not the same as to keep her pencils in the drawer to me.
Oh, yes. That's very good. That's a very good point. So, yes, I liked the others' comment. So, Dao, please.
Yes. So I have the same confusion as okay. However, I changed my mind. Actually, at first, I think that never is an adjunct. However, now when I rethink, I think that never should be a complement, because when I apply two different tests, the first one is a test of do-so replacement, never work with this test. So for example, we had the sentence Erin never does so. So it's fine. So it should be an adjunct. However, if I apply another test, it's called adjacency and reordering. I put never in far from the verb keeps and its lookouts. I cannot put it far from the verb keeps, and and another one is out of the book. Because complement is something very essential to the meaning of the verb phrase never keep. And adjunct is something just additional. It's optional. You can eliminate it out of the verb. So we cannot eliminate the phrase the verb never out of the verb keep. It change the meaning of the phrase here.
My
conclusion is that never should be a complement.
Okay, let me just comment, and then I will give the word to the others. So this is an important point that you raised, that the complements are somehow essential and the adjuncts are optional. And actually, I would say that this shows that never is an adjunct, right? Because, I mean, if you look at this sentence, Erin never keeps her pencils in the correct drawer, you can drop never. And what you have is Erin keeps her pencils in the correct drawer, and that's just fine. So I think you can drop never quite easily. So this looks like an adjunct. Compare it with trying to drop her pencils. Erin never keeps in the correct drawer. That's pretty bad. So I think this test, whether it's optional or not, this actually shows that never is an adjunct, and her pencils is a complement. But let's hear from Hannah. Hannah, you wanted to say something too?
Yes, just the same as the first quick test, which shows whether of shows if the of test. There is also this one rule that says that the direct object is always the complement and everything else is an adjunct. And so here in this sentence, the noun phrase is the complement, and we can only have one complement per sentence. So when it turns out that that is the complement, the other ones are therefore adjuncts. And we can also use the conjunction for the second adjunct, and we can say keeps her pencil and in the correct drawer, and that would still be correct.
Keeps her pencils and in the correct drawer, and that's not a good sentence, right? I think keeps her pencils and in the correct drawer. Yeah, this is a good point. So indeed the object of a verb is always a complement, and that's right. Of course, I mean, you can reinforce this with the do-so test. So you cannot say Erin never does so her pencils. Something like, you know, imagine Erin never keeps her pencils in the correct drawer, and John never does so his pens. That's pretty bad. So you cannot just replace keeps with do so, but you have to replace keeps her pencils with do so. This shows that her pencils is a complement. And actually what this replacement also shows, if you think of it, so you can say something like Erin never keeps her pencils in the correct drawer, but John always does so. So you can say never does so, always does so, and this actually indicates, I think, that never and always is an adjunct here. Okay. There is one final point I would make, and a reaction to. Let me check something. Sorry. Okay, I'm moving a bit. Okay, I just moved to a different room in the flat because there is some activity going on. Can you hear me? And
yes, all right.
Make sure that you see the what you should see. I mean no, not this one. Sorry. I'm so sorry. Yeah, so just one final comment I would like to make. So Ulrike brought our attention to the difference between Erin never keeps her pencils and Erin never keeps her pencils in the drawer. And indeed, I agree that there seems to be a difference between the two, because the first one means that she loses her pencils all the time, right? And the other one means something like he places her pencils somewhere. And if you think of this then sort of seems to suggest that maybe this in the correct drawer is, after all, it's not entirely optional, right? Because dropping it changes the meaning. And if something is not optional, then it should be a complement. Okay, and so this is a tricky situation. In the correct drawer, it seems to be like an adjunct because it's kind of optional, but not completely optional. So is it an adjunct? Is it a complement? And the truth is that there are some phrases which are sort of halfway between adjunct and complement, okay? But that's a more advanced topic which we can't discuss in detail, but you should know that most of the time you can say very easily whether something is a complement or an adjunct, but there are cases where the lines are a bit blurred. Okay. Let's look at B. That's an easier one, I think. Yeah. Oh, Linda, please.
And for B, actually, to me, I just draw the tree, but I can show this one. Then
please show it.
It's okay, Professor. I can tell this one without drawing the tree.
Okay, then go ahead, please.
Yes. Can you show that sentence again, Professor?
Yes. I'm doing it right now. Yes. No. Yes. Here we go.
Then walk to the New Mexico in the train last years. So to the New Mexico is the complement of the verb phrase walks, and in the train is the adjunct, and adverb of the last year is the complement of the word walks.
Okay, so you say the first PP is a complement.
Yes.
The second one
is the adjunct.
Is adjunct, and the last one
is the complement.
Okay, well, I see one issue with this is that you can't really have two complements of the same verb, right? Because you remember that the complement is always sister to the head. So if the verb walked is the head, then we can only have one complement. At least this is the theory. So this makes it unlikely that both to New Mexico and last year would be complements. And the other thing is, if you remember that an adjunct can never intervene between the verb and the complement. So if last year is a complement, then intervene couldn't be an adjunct. So based on this, I would say that at maximum, to New Mexico can be a complement, but all the other guys have to be adjuncts. Okay. Okay, what about the tests? Did you try any tests, Linda?
I just do the three.
Okay.
Yes.
So let's try to do the tests because the tests really help us. So how would the do so test work? So which part can we replace with the do so? So Dan walked to New Mexico in the rain last year, and John did so in the sun yesterday. Is that okay? Did so in the sun yesterday. What do you think? You can hear me, right? So, are you here?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah,
yes,
great. Okay, so actually, I will open the discussion. So we heard Linda's solution, but I don't completely agree. So let's see what other solutions there are on the market. Please raise your hand if you I see there is an interesting discussion in the chat window as well. I will come to that in a minute, but let's focus on this sentence. Okay, so then walked to New Mexico in the rain last year. Hannah, please.
I said that to New Mexico is the complement, and in the rain is an adjunct, as well as the last year, because we can actually reorder the two last conjunctions. We can say last year in the rain, and we can also use a conjunction and say in the rain and last year.
That's right. I agree with this. So these are pretty solid pieces of evidence that in the rain and last year are both. Oh, I'm sorry for this. You can hear my baby, but she will be all right soon. So okay, so that's right. In the rain and last year are both adjuncts. What about and you say to New Mexico is a complement? Okay. Very good, Linda, please.
How about we just put the last year after the New Mexico, then walk to the New Mexico last year. Then last year it can, or then walk last Mexico. So the last year it can complement the verb walk. And last year
Yes.
it's rain.
Yeah, actually, I tend to agree with Linda's argument that you can actually move last year to the very front. So you can say something like, Dan walked last year to New Mexico in the rain. I think that's grammatical, maybe not the most natural. It's maybe not the most natural way of putting it, but it's absolutely grammatical. So yes, so based on this argument, actually, if you play with the orders, I think looking at these three, so the two PPs, to New Mexico, in the rain last year, I think almost any order works.
Or we can say, Professor, last year then walk to the New Mexico in the train. Just
yes, you can even move it to the front, but that's a more complicated story. I wouldn't go into it here, but
so that's why if you draw the tree, it's easy to
okay. Sorry, I just I have to take care of this because I can't hear you properly. Give Okay, I'm back again. Sorry for this confusion, but my baby was really upset for some reason, but her mom is with her, so it's gonna be okay. So yeah, we've been looking at this beautiful sentence, and basically my argument was that if you look at all these phrases, actually you can play with the orders. So not only in the rain and last year can be rearranged, but you can actually play with to New Mexico as well. And this indicates that all three seem to be adjuncts. And Hannah, you want to say something?
No, sorry, I just forgot to lower my hand.
Okay, that's okay. So I would say all three here are actually adjuncts, even though if you try the do-so test, for example, well, I mean, what about Dan walked to New Mexico in the rain last year and Jack did so to California in the sun yesterday? That sounds a bit strange. So the evidence is not clear-cut, but what is certain is that in the rain and last year are adjuncts, and to New Mexico also looks like an adjunct. Okay, so that's it. All right. Thank you for all this debate. Linda, you have something to add?
Professor, if we say that three here is adjunct, how can we have the complement of the verb walk?
Sorry?
If we say to New Mexico or in the train or the last year are adjunct, how about the complement of the verb walk?
Well, that's a good question. Well, you can say that walk doesn't need a complement, right? Because it's not a transitive verb. So some verbs need a complement, like, I don't know, keep, for example. Keep needs an object.
Need the preposition. Walk to somewhere.
Yes, that's a good point, actually. So this is a bit like keeping it in the draw. So somehow it seems that that here we are not talking about walking in a general sense, but about walking to some place, and this endpoint needs to be a necessary part of the structure, and that's why actually you cannot do the do-so test. I think so you cannot say Dan did so to New Mexico. That's weird. So I would say, if I'm fully honest with you, that just like in the correct draw in A is somehow between complement and adjunct, in the same way to New Mexico in B is between complement and adjunct. Okay, so ideally something is either a complement or an adjunct, but there are situations where some phrase is sort of halfway between these two extremes. But that's more advanced material. Okay, thank you for the discussion. I have to conclude the discussion now so that we can proceed. Oh, Dao has something to add. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, because the time is limited, so I don't think it's necessary to discuss anymore. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm really sorry, and I'm also sorry for all this confusion, but it's a complicated day here at home. So, okay, this was the homework discussion, and then let's, I would say, let's cover some new ground. Okay, and let's finish the discussion of X bar. You see the slides now, right? Which is good news if that's the case. And okay, let me just check very quickly how far we got last week, so that we continue from the right place. Yes, so you had to read until chapter 6.4, and this means that sorry, this means that oh yes, we looked at the definitions, and now we can talk about parameters of word order, and that's an interesting bit, actually, parameters. So let's look into this. So what are these parameters I am talking about? So the idea is that we have talked about X bar structure, how it works in English, and the linguists believe that pretty much all languages of the world have a similar X-bar structure, which sounds nice, but at the same time, we also have this experience that different languages of the world look different in terms of their word order. So how is it possible that all languages have the X-bar structure and yet on the surface they have different word order properties? And this is where the so-called parameters come into play. Okay, so just to recap how the X-bar rules work in English, certainly. There is the complement rule. So we have the head, which can have one complement. This gives us the X-bar level. There is the adjunct rule. We can have a sister to X-bar, an adjunct, and this gives us a higher X-bar. And then at the top of the phrase, there is the specifier rule. X-bar has a sister to the left, the so-called specifier, and this gives us the whole phrase. And indeed, in English, that's what we see. So the specifier is to the left of the X-bar node. The complement is to the right of the X-bar node, and the adjunct can be either on the left or on the right. This is what we see in English. And then the proposal is that maybe this is where we have some variation between different languages. So all languages have the X-bar structure, complements, adjuncts, specifiers. The difference between languages is whether, for example, the complement is to the right of the head or to the left of the head. Okay, this is a nice proposal. Let's see how it works in practice. So this would be the proposal. In some languages, just like English, the specifier is to the left of X-bar. In others, it is to the right. The adjunct can also be, I mean, in English, certainly, an adjunct can be to the left of X-bar. It can also be to the right of X-bar, but we can imagine a language which is more strict. Maybe there is a language where an adjunct has to precede X-bar or follow X-bar. And the same with complements. Maybe there are languages where the complement comes after the head, just like English. And maybe there are languages where the complement comes before the head. Okay, this is a nice theory, and let's see how this would work out. Okay, so this is the idea that the book is trying to sell us, that X-bar theory is the same in every language. So in every human person's head who can speak a language, we have the same X-bar theory. This is part of the universal grammar. Every language has this. And where the change comes is which of these options are available and not. And these options are called parameters. And when a child learns a language, it sort of listens to what kind of sentences she or he hears and sort of sets these parameters. Okay, so for example, this is a switch. Okay, this is a metaphor. So looking at the specifier, it's either the case that the specifier is to the left of X-bar or to the right of X-bar. Either or. It's like a switch, on and off. Looking at complements, either the complement follows the head or precedes the head. This is a switch. And the idea is that when children learn a language, they sort of listen to the sentences they hear. And based on this, they decide, metaphorically speaking, whether the switch should be up or down. So for example, when an English baby listens to English spoken in her home, she will learn sooner or later that in English a complement comes after the head, and she will set the switch accordingly. And if we talk about a Japanese baby, I think a Japanese baby will learn that in Japanese complements come before the head, and she will set the switch in a different way. Okay, so this is how this parameter story is supposed to work. Let's look at a couple of examples. In English, for example. Okay, an English baby will hear expressions such as the basketball. And what is the conclusion? Well, it seems that in English, specifiers precede heads because it is the basketball and not basketball the. All right, so in English, the specifier has to precede the head. Okay, because the determiner is the specifier of the noun phrase. By the way, question, do you happen to know a language where a determiner comes after the noun? Do you maybe happen to know a language where the basketball would be basketball the? Ulrike?
I think it's in Romanian this way.
Yes, that's right. In Romanian, absolutely. The preposition, I mean, the determiner, the definite article comes after the noun. Okay, so Romanian seems to have a different parameter setting. In English, specifiers precede heads. In Romanian, it seems that they follow heads. So this switch is in the other position in Romanian compared to English. What about adjuncts in English? Well, if English baby listens to, this is maybe not the kind of story a baby would listen to, but she would hear things like, some people often kiss intensely. And what can be learned from this piece of data? Well, it can be concluded from this piece of data that an adjunct can precede the head, but it can also follow the head. I guess it seems that English is, in general, quite permissive when it comes to adjuncts. Adjuncts can be on either side of, not the head, sorry, but the X-bar level, X-bar node. What about complements? Well, in English, certainly, complements are always on the right. So they follow the head. So you can have a bucket of chicken, but not of chicken bucket. All right, so English is head initial in the sense that heads have to precede their complements. So by listening to lots of expressions, a baby can set these parameters. What precedes what? Let's look at a language which is different from English on the surface, and let's see how we can explain this difference by looking at parameters. So this is, does anyone speak Turkish here? I don't. So we have to believe that this is how it works. So it is Hasan Kitabi. Actually, Kitabi is the same in Arabic, right? Or similar, I guess. So Hasan Kitabi okudu, and this means Hasan, the book, read. Okay, and you see that the word order is quite different from English because this is subject, object, verb. So a different word order compared to English. How can we explain this in terms of these parameters? As you know, the as we discussed already today, the object is the complement of the verb. So it seems that in Turkish, complements precede the head. Okay, so Turkish is OV because the object, the complement, precedes the head, the verb. So this is how we can explain why we have OV in Turkish and VO in English. So this is a nice illustration how X-bar theory plus these parameters taken together explain a word order phenomena. Okay. Any questions or comments about this? My question, do you happen to know other languages which are OV, where the object precedes the verb? Ulrike?
I know this from classical Latin, and I do know that it is possible in Hungarian too.
Oh yes, Hungarian is very complicated when it comes to word order, but absolutely it's possible for Hungarian to be verb final in many cases. And classical Latin, I do not know, but I buy this from you. So classical Latin was OV as well. Okay, what else? Maybe some of your mother tongues are OV actually. I'm not sure. I don't want to guess, but Ulrike?
I know that there has been discussion going on whether a word order in German is actually OV because in the subordinate clause the verb comes in the final position, but in the main clauses the verb has to be in the second position of the sentence, so it's a bit complicated. But I know that there's discussion going on about this, that the basic word order of German is actually OV.
Oh, yes, yes.
It's also to do with the position of an infinitive phrase, like I'm putting this in the chat. To buy a book.
Let's look at the chat.
So if you say to buy a book in English, in German it's ein Buch kaufen, and kaufen means to buy. So, and I know that these arguments are put forward for this in this discussion, that German might actually be verb final.
Okay, that's right. So you cannot have kaufen ein Buch or something like that. That's completely out.
Right. That's out.
Okay, very good. Yeah, that's interesting. The point Ulrike raised, that so English is in general VO and Turkish is OV, but some languages such as German have this interesting pattern that in main clauses they have one word order, VO, and in subordinate or certain subordinate cases they have OV. And then the tricky thing is how do we explain it? Maybe which is the real one? And indeed there's a huge debate about this in the literature. Okay, so let's see the other entries. Yes, I also, I mean, I don't speak either Japanese or Korean, unfortunately, but I also have the same information that these languages are OV. Hannah had a question about passive voice. Well, passive is complicated for the time being. Let's just talk about the active sentences. And let me show you something interesting at this point. But maybe I already showed you this word atlas of languages. But if I haven't, I will show it now because it's super interesting. I hope it will work out. Can you see this map now? Or not really?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, great.
Yes, yes.
So this is called the Word Atlas of Language Structures online. WALS info. And this is super interesting if you are interested in the typological differences between languages. For example, here, there is this beautiful map. The blue circles are SOV languages, the red circles are SVO languages. It seems that there are VSO languages as well, okay, so all kinds of combinations, and it seems that you have pretty much everything in the word. So there is English here, which is SVO, but there are many SOV languages, the blue ones. There are some patterns, so there are regions where some pattern predominates over the others and so on. So this is very nice. And the good news is that all this variation, or a significant part of this variation, can be explained with the help of these parameters. Okay, very good. Now, my plan today was to proceed with the new chapter, but the homework discussion was so exciting, and then we had all this confusion in my home, so we proceeded a bit slower than planned. So I have to reconsider it a bit. And my idea is the following: we finished X-bar theory, okay, so chapter 6. So chapter 7 will be required reading for you. So you will have to process chapter 7 on your own. Okay, so this is one task. Please read chapter 7. And I will also send you some homework later today concerning chapter 7. Okay, so that's what we are going to do in order to process with the material. So required reading is chapter 7. I also will send some homework, and then next week we will discuss the homework and cover chapter 8 together, if that's okay. Okay. Any questions or comments at this point? So on the plus side, we had some very nice discussion. This was great. On the minus side, this is a bit chaotic due to some disturbances. So this means you have to cover the next chapter on your own, but the book is very well written, so this will not be difficult. I will send you the homework. If I don't, please remind me. And we will meet next week and proceed together with chapter 8.
How many more weeks do we have together?
Oh yes, that's a good question. That's a very good question. So let's look at the syllabus. My recollection actually is that I share the screen. Okay. So my recollection is that, and it's not only my recollection, but it's also the syllabus, that so actually we won't cover all the chapters that we wanted to. We have 2 classes to go. Okay, so next week and the week after that. So probably we won't read all the chapters, but that's okay. It wasn't my intention to cover the whole book necessarily. My intention was to give you a taste of what syntactic theory is like, and this is happening. So okay, so 2 classes to go, basically.
Okay, thank you.
You're absolutely welcome. And Muluken has a question.
Can it be better, like, if you just simply summarize the rest chapters, and we can have exam exercise from each of them or something like that?
To summarize all the remaining chapters, you mean? So that
Yeah, just not to leave the chapters. Can it be better if you just not just?
That's possible. I will think about it. If that's something you would appreciate, we can do that.
Within one class, and the rest in the coming week we can have the summary of each of those, and in the coming after that we will work on the exercise of all those chapters.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I will think
don't know if it is better.
No.
I think
I will think about it. Okay, because it's maybe it's better to cover less material but go into details versus cover a lot of material without going into details. There are benefits, and I will think about this. Okay, but thank you for the.
Thank you.
Okay, Linda.
I have one question, Professor.
Yes, please.
So the test is similar to the test that we took last semester, or what kind of test? Like multiple choice?
Yes, absolutely. So it will be very similar to last year's test, and it will be an open book test. So you will be allowed to use the book, right? And I have to go for the break now, but next week I will start with talking to you about the test. Okay, if I don't, please remind me. So next week, before the homework discussion, I will tell you about the test. Okay.
Professor, if you have some MCQ, I think it's faster.
Sorry?
MCQ. Multiple choice question, Professor.
Sorry, I didn't get this one.
I mean, if the test that contain some multiple choice question, I think maybe it faster.
Okay, well, I will think about this. Okay.
Because in this semester we have to draw a lot of tree. If we have that, it takes time.
Oh yes, that's true. That's true. So I will consider this. But on the other hand, it's important that you know these trees. Okay. So yeah, that's tricky. But let me think about this a bit. Okay. Good.
Yes, thank you very much.
I have to say goodbye now. Thank you for.
Thank you. Have a nice weekend.
Here. And see you next week. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Goodbye.